the SEC. You know, obviously this conference is now very oversized. Um,
Oversized, overbloated, overcovered.
yes. So let's what are we gonna bring that someone else is not gonna bring? I don't know. But hey, we'll find out together. Matt,
Um,
who is your sleeper?
my sleeper is Tennessee. I mean, they're seventh in a 16-team division, so not bad. Um, but I think they can actually start making some noise. There were multiple times last year that the crowd was chanting um, for their current starter to get Milton out of the game. Um, so like the fact that they were doing that, the fans get their quarterback. I think he's going to take a big jump up this year. They're Tennessee. They're an SEC program. They're still going to get talent. Peyton Manning keeps pushing as many people in his camps to Tennessee as he can. Um, but I think they're going to do pretty well. I don't think they're going to make it to the conference championship. I think they're going to still have a couple losses, but
Yeah. Yeah, potential wild card to get in that large bid to the playoff though. You know, I really like what they have at receiver. They are absolutely loaded at that position.
yeah,
Yes, my sleeper though, and I really just had to, you know, hold my nose here and go with it because, you know, there's been so many times lately that Texas A&M has been hyped up and then disappointed. But I'm gonna have to go with the Aggies here. You know, they finally don't have Jimbo
Jimbo Fisher.
Fisher. They'll have Jimbo Fisher shuffling around all his plays on it, like his hundreds of thousands of plays on his papers. You know, losing them, getting disorganized and stuff, making Bobby Petrino figure out which plays on the papers to run. He's finally out of there, so I think the offense is going to look a little bit more organized. You know, I've always liked the potential of Connor Wegman. And I think we're going to finally see more of that. Mike Elko is now the coach, so you know the defense is going to be really good. Um, and the other thing I think that I really liked when looking at this team is the schedule. All of the key, pretty much almost all of the key matchups they have come to College Station. You know, Notre Dame has to come to College Station. Texas does. If I recall correctly, LSU does as well. Like, everyone has to come to them. And that's going to be a huge advantage for them.
Yeah, but I mean,
So
like when you lose like pretty much your only good player into the transfer portal, I like the like you're thinking, but I do feel like it's gonna take a couple years to get to where you're thinking.
we shall see because I still think this is a talented roster, and I think it's going to play better with addition by subtraction, and that is Jimbo Fisher and his big buyout money at getting out of town.
um, speaking of busts, um, I got LSU busting. Brian Kelly, I think he's past his prime in coaching. They
Ooh.
lost. Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bitter towards him, but um, I think he may have stayed at Notre Dame too long to do what he wants to do. He was able to get Jaden Daniels and get him a Heisman, but they still went they got 4 losses with Jaden Daniels. Their defense was terrible last year. They just lost their 2 best receivers. I just don't think that I think that the offense will still keep not maybe pace with last year, but I think it's going to be a typical Brian Kelly offense where it's all flash and pizzazz, but in the big moments, they're going to just falter.
Very nice. I like it. I like that bold pick. Yeah, and I'm going bold as well here. My bust is going to be the Texas Longhorns. I think Texas is going to miss the college football playoff. You don't just show up and join a new conference in this day and age without hitting some road bumps. I think everyone's kind of assuming that Texas is going to figure it out easily and make it here, but I don't think that's going to be the case. You know, I mean, they actually lost a good deal off of last year's team. The headline is that Quinn Ewers is back. That is awesome. That's great. But what about everyone else that they're missing? Like, they're trying to band-aid some of these positions with the portal. And I mean, there are talented people they got from the portal, but how are all those pieces going to come together? And how are they going to replace the special guys they have? Because like they're not going to have the same speed that receiver they had before. It's going to be really difficult to replace the impact that guys like Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat had inside against the run.
Yeah.
And they still have the secondary to figure out. And again, I mean, you're adjusting to a new conference, new environments, road games at Texas A&M, and out of conference, they also play at Michigan. I think it's going to take like 3 losses, and they'll probably be out of the college football playoff.
I don't necessarily think so. I think the difference maker here is Quinn Ewers, and I do think we're going to see Arch Manning a decent amount this year. Not like in terms of, I think it's going to be like different packages. They have Quinn Ewers in on most packages, but then there's a couple smaller packages that Arch Manning comes in because Arch is a redshirt freshman.
Yeah.
You want to give him the spotlight before his 1 year of starting before he goes to the NFL. You want to be able to showcase him a little bit and be like, hey, man, let's do this. You are a prodigy. So I think he gets some playing time, but not splitting it. I don't think it's 50-50. I think it's going to be still like 85-15 Quinn Ewers. But I think Texas is another one of those programs, especially with them announcing that they're going to the SEC. I think just because they lost a lot of talent, I think that Texas brand is coming back, especially since they're getting all
Texas
Lamborghinis.
is back.
I think the brand is back. I don't necessarily think the team is all the way back. Once they get to the playoff, I think they're going to choke. But I think for this, they're going to beat Georgia. I don't have a whole lot of faith in Carson Beck. I do not think he's elite. I do think he's really good.
I think, you gave me a lot there to talk about. First of all,
Horns down.
Second of all, I agree a little bit. Like, I'm not too high on Carson Beck as well. He just doesn't stick out to me. He's a guy who's there. He's executing an offense with, obscene amount of talent around him. He's got all day to throw because he has probably the best offensive line in college football in front of him. He doesn't have to do a lot because he's got great running backs, great receivers. I mean, I hate blaming him because the team around him is so awesome, but there really isn't anything that sticks out about him that excites me. Like I don't really recall a time where he fit a throw in like a tight window or anything because his receivers are so wide open.
And it's not like he's a scrambler like Justin Fields and was able to just run for 85-yard touchdowns.
Right. Yeah. I mean, really the only time they really had a team in the same punching club as them last year was the SEC championship against Alabama. And as unfair as it is to say, they did lose that game.
Yeah.
Everyone else really didn't stand a chance. But that being said, I'm still high on this Georgia team. I may have said a few negative things there, but I mean, this Georgia team is just going to wipe through college football. They have not lost to a non-Nick Saban team since 2020. All of their losses in recent years have all come to Nick Saban. And I mean, you even have to go further back if you want to find a time where they lost to a currently active coach. Because in 2020, they lost to Dan Mullen. So he's not in coaching either. I mean, I wonder if Nick Saban was the thing getting in the way of Georgia just becoming a complete dynasty.
I would agree with that, but I also think of it as Steve Sarkisian was Nick Saban coordinator as well. So it's literally a fight for the dynasty. And I think Kirby Smart, because he was bested year after year after year, I think he has yeah, he did win the championship, but I think that there's how do I put this? There's certain games that he just can't get out of his own way.
Yeah.
And I
I mean, pretty much all of those were against Nick Saban, Alabama.
yeah. But I mean, like, I think it's going to be one of those things where you get him into a situation without Nick Saban in the league, and then he still gets in his own way.
We shall see. This year, I think they might lose to Alabama in the regular season, but get revenge in the SEC championship. So I have Georgia over Alabama. Alabama's side, I think they're going to be just fine.
Yeah. I think DeBoer's going to have Milroe. I think Milroe may win a Heisman this year.
It's going to be very interesting because Jalen Milroe is just a ridiculous athlete. The one problem was, though, he wasn't a good quarterback yet.
Yeah.
His accuracy wasn't the greatest, not exactly like throwing of anticipation, but I mean, the guy could burn you because he runs a freaking 4.4. If DeBoer gets him even close to the point where, he's throwing better, I mean, watch out. This team is very dangerous.
Yeah, I know.
It's scary to think about, really.
A little bit. I think the dynasty will live on.
Yeah, I mean, I think they end up making the best hire to replace Saban. Even though it was very funny to think about the idea that Tommy Rees could take over at one point.
That would have just sunk him. I don't think Tommy Rees is ready to be a coach.
I don't think Alabama was foolish enough to do that.
No.
But yeah,
this isn't the 90s where you can just make bad hires willy-nilly. This is
I know, right?
We've done our obligatory SEC talk. So unless you have you may have had something about Vanderbilt.
Well, yeah, I think we got a couple more here to put a bow on this. So Vanderbilt, we touched on it in the Conference USA section, but how about the fact that they just decided, you know what? We've been so bad. We're just going to import all of New Mexico State to this team. I think they're at least going to be exciting to watch. Diego Pavia in the SEC is going to be very interesting. But yeah, we'll have to see. They're going to be running more of like a pistol option with him. I mean, at least they're getting creative, right?
Yeah. I mean, they have the Bland V. They had their scoreboard hanging from a crane a couple years ago.
I mean, so it finally just wasn't like just recently. Like they finally got it off the crane recently, and they actually did a video celebrating the fact that it's no longer the crane.
I wonder how much it was to rent that crane for that long.
I know, they had that crane up for probably about a year at this point.
Yeah, that's a hefty daily expense. But yeah. What did Arkansas do?
Yeah, I want to talk about how stupid this conference is. Like teams, when they get desperate, I mean, they just get stupid, and it's the best. And Arkansas, how in the world did Bobby Petrino end up back at Arkansas? I am so obsessed with this. It is the thing I have to talk about every single time because I cannot believe after the way that ended that Bobby Petrino somehow found his way back there as offensive coordinator.
Can you remind us what happened?
Yes. So there's an alleged incident where he was cheating on his wife with a woman that worked at the university. They got in a motorcycle accident. He got fired, all while being in a press conference with wearing a neck brace.
Arkansas is a wild state.
It really is. In mentioning wild and angry fans, let's talk about the Florida Gators, who are just on an absolute ride to hell schedule this year. They have at Florida was for a long time known for mostly putting together weak non-conference schedules. And then this year, for some reason, they have completely flipped that because they play the Miami Hurricanes, they play UCF, and they play Florida State, which, by the way, shout out to playing about everyone in the state.
Yeah.
But those are really tough games. And then you get into SEC play. And I mean, I'm going to have to pull this up real quick. Because the schedule to finish the season is just nuts. And I mean, like, it's very weird too because everyone is pretty much written off Billy Napier because of the schedule. And it's just a wild thing to see. So they wrap up the season at Georgia, at Texas, home against LSU, home against Ole Miss. So when I mentioned those four, look at where they are in the standings there, in that preseason poll. That's 4 of the top 5. They also play at Florida State to close out the regular season. Now let's not forget, that's not even all the games. They also play, like I mentioned, Miami, Florida, and UCF. They also play Texas A&M, my sleeper. They also play at Tennessee, your sleeper.
Yeah, I don't think Florida has a chance.
I think that's been the general consensus from most people.
I think Kentucky will probably have a much better season. Hell, I think Arkansas may have a better season than Florida.
Oh my, poor Florida.